Chidera Ejike and Paul Onachu arrives Eagles camp in Benin. Super Eagles players to undergo COVID-19 tests on Wednesday. Leon Stars coach John Kister named 23 players for AFCON doubleheader against the Super Eagles of Nigeria. In boxing, Luke Campbell's fight with American Ryan Garcia postponed after testing positive to coronavirus. Let's go on a short break, and when we come back, we start with the main stories. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Sports Around the World on Grand Sports Extra. In football, there was wide excitement at the Super Eagles Eternal Hotel camp on Wednesday morning following the arrival of the trio of Samuel Chukwueze, Chidera Ejike, and Paul Onachu to the Super Eagles camp. Their arrival increased the number of players in the camp to 19. 16 players took part in the team's first training session under the floodlight at the Samuel Ogbomodia Stadium in Benin City on Tuesday night. The new arrivals will take part in Wednesday's training, which is billed to start by 5 p.m. Moving on to our next story, Maduka Okoye is looking forward to making his first appearance on home soil for the Super Eagles. The Sparta Rotterdam of Holland goalkeeper made his Super Eagles debut against five-time world champions Brazil last year. His last two appearances came in the friendly against African champions Algeria and Carthage Eagles of Tunisia. Okoye is among the four goalkeepers battling for the number one spot ahead of the 2021 AFCON Africa Cup of Nations qualifying clash against Sierra Leone. Moving on to our next story, Super Eagles will undergo coronavirus tests on Wednesday morning as they prepare for Friday 2021 AFCON qualifier against Sierra Leone in Benin City. The coronavirus test, which is scheduled for 10 a.m., is part of a team preparation for the AFCON qualifier against Sierra Leone. The Eagles will have breakfast at 9 a.m. before the coronavirus test an hour later. At 10 a.m., the team will hold its first training session of the day in the Eternal Hotel, and at 12:30 p.m. will be the team's meeting. Moving on to our next story, still in football, Super Eagles head coach Grande has warned his players not to expect an easy game against Leon Stars of Sierra Leone on Friday. Raw's Chargers will host their fellow West Africans in a match day 3 fixture of the 2022 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier at the Samuel Ogbomodia Stadium in Benin City. The Leon Stars, like the Super Eagles, have a number of quality players plying their trades outside the shore of the country, including Captain Omaru Bangura, Kai Kamara, and Augustin Williams. Raw believes the Leon Star will be a tough nut to crack and warned that his players must be ready to give their all against them on Friday. Let's go on a short break, and when we come back, we have more sports stories for you. All right, welcome back to Sports Around the World on Grand Sports Extra. Still in football, the Super Eagles captain Ahmed Musa says the team will go all out for a win in Friday's 2021 Africa Cup of Nations qualifying match against Sierra Leone. The three-time African champions started preparation for the encounter on Tuesday at the Samuel Ogbomodia Stadium in Benin City. Musa, alongside 15 other players, took part in the session under the close supervision of the head coach, Grande. The Super Eagles topped Group L of the 2021 Cameroon AFCON qualifier with 6 points after recording victories in their opening two games against the Squirrels of Benin Republic and the Crocodiles of Lesotho. Musa insists the team is battle ready for the game and the players can't wait to get on the pitch again. Moving on to our next story, still talking football. Leon Stars captain Umaru Bangura has confirmed his availability to face Nigeria in Friday's 2022 African Cup of Nations qualifying fixture at the Samuel Ogbomodia Stadium in Benin City. Bangura initially was not named in Coach John Kingstar's 16 foreign-based players invited for the game. However, the former Dynamo Minsk defender declared that he is 100% fit to play. Meanwhile, defender Ismail Koroma, who plays for newly promoted Swedish Super Stand side Vasalod IF, will have to make way for the return of his national skipper. The Super Eagles topped the Group L, acquiring 6 points from 2 wins against Lesotho and the Republic of Benin. Moving on to our next story, still talking football, Sierra Leone coach John Kister has named 23 players for the 2021 Africa Cup of Nations qualifying doubleheader against the Super Eagles of Nigeria. 8 home-based players made the list while the rest are foreign-based professionals. Captain Umaru Bangura, who was initially left out of the squad, made the list alongside key stars Kei Kamara, Augustine William, Mustafa Bundu, and Usman KK. The Leon Stars are expected to travel to Nigeria on Wednesday for the game. The Leon Stars occupy last position in Group L with 1 point from 2 games. Now let's give you this full team with goalkeepers Mohamed N. We have Kamara Unisa. We have Unisa Conte. We also have Isaac Kreka. In the defense, we have Abubakar Samura. We have Yemi Dunia. We have Ali Sese. We also have Kevin Wright, Usman Keke, Umar Bangura, and Mustafa Dumbuya. In midfield, we have John Kamara. We have Rodney Strasser. We have Mohamed M. Kamara. We also have Mohamed B. Turai. Then in forward, we have K. Kamara. We have Mustafa Bundu. We have Augustine Williams. We have Alassan Koroma. We have Kwam Kui. We have Emmanuel Samadia. And we have Alaji Kamara. Moving on to our next story, still talking football. Barcelona have not yet found an agreement with their players over their talks for wage deduction. According to reports, the clubs have extended deadlines on imposing a wage deduction on their squad by 1 week after negotiation failed to find agreement. Talks will now progress into Wednesday with 2 main points of friction. 1. The players do not believe the deduction should be precisely the same for every player and believe instead that it should be tiered. Then the second reason is that they do not understand the club's B players. They do not understand why the club's B players will be impacted by the courts, but not the basketball players. The report claims that there is now a pressing urgency that the Catalan giant must drastically reduce costs by January or face bankruptcy, with a new deduction to reduce their wage bill by a notable 30% by Thursday. The club recently confirmed contract extension for defender Gerard Piqué through to 2024, while goalkeeper Marc-Andre ter Stegen has penned a deal until 2025, while both Clement Lenglet and Frankie de Jong have extended their stay through until 2026. Let's go on another short break, and when we come back, we have more stories for you. Don't go nowhere. All right, welcome back. It's still sports around the world on Grand Sport Extra. Still talking football. Barcelona overpaid their former star player Neymar a whopping 10 million euros due to a tax miscalculation and are now requesting their money to be returned. According to reports which outlines how the Catalan giant made a significant calculation in paying the Brazilian international during his time at the club, it was outlined that Blaugrana won a court case against the player following a bonus dispute, and Neymar subsequently had to pay the club 6.7 million euros. The court dispute has centered around Neymar's claim that the Blaugrana owed him an unpaid bonus of 43 million euros following the last contract he signed with the club in 2016. Back in September, it was revealed that the superstar owes 34.6 million euros to the Spanish state in unpaid taxes and debt accumulation. Now 28, Neymar starred for the Catalan giant between 2013 and 2017 before joining Paris Saint-Germain in a world record transfer worth 222 million euros. Moving on to our next story, Football Association chairman Greg Clark has resigned over the unacceptable language he used when referring to black players. Clark said he was deeply saddened for the offense he had caused by using the term. The comment came as he was talking about the racist abuse of players by trolls on social media to the Department of Digital Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee via video link. Clark said in his words were a disservice to the game. Peter McCormick will step into the role of interim FA chairman with immediate effect, and the FA board will begin the processing of identifying and appointing a new chair in due course. Moving on to our next story, still talking football. Following the resignation of Greg Clark on Tuesday, Tyrone Mings has asked for a black FA chairman. Clark resigned on Tuesday after using unacceptable language when referring to black players. Asked what it will mean to have a black man or woman as chairman, Mings said it will be a huge step and that it will be everything that a lot of people have worked for, while also adding that he is not necessarily asking for the next chairman or chief to be black, but equal opportunities for both black and white or ethnic minorities. Now moving on to our next story, in basketball, the NBA season will begin on 22nd December after an agreement was reached with players over scheduling, salary figures, and free agency dates. The usual season start date in October was pushed back because of the coronavirus pandemic to delay the 2029-2020 campaign, but the NBA and its players union have agreed a new date and a 72-game season, a reduction on a usual campaign. The NBA draft will take place on 18th of November. From 20th of November, free agents can start negotiating with teams and will be able to sign deals from November 22nd. With such a short time between the conclusion of the playoffs and the start of the next season, there have been reports that some players could miss the start of the new campaign in order to rest more. Let's take another short break, and when we come back, we have more sports stories for you. Don't go nowhere. All right, welcome back to Sports Around the World on Grand Sports Extra. Moving on to our next story in boxing. Luz Campbell's fight with American Rhea Garcia has been postponed after the Britain tested positive to coronavirus. The WBC interim lightweight title bout was scheduled to take place on 5th of December in California. All parties involved are working to get a new scheduled date as soon as possible. Campbell's last fight was in August 2019 when he was beaten on points by Vasyl Lomachenko. Moving on to our next story in cricket. West Indies players have been banned from training and confined to their hotel rooms in New Zealand after breaching quarantine regulations. Security footage from the team's hotel in Christchurch showed players sharing food and socializing outside of their smaller biosecure bubbles. The team had been granted special dispensation to train during their mandatory 14 days isolation period. The period will end on Friday provided they all test negative for COVID-19. West Indies played 3 T20 internationals and 2 test matches on their tour of New Zealand, with the first T20 due to take place on 27th November in Auckland. Moving on to our next story in tennis. Eight single players competing at this year's ATP finals will be Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal, Dominic Thiem, Daniil Medvedev, Stefanos Tsitsipas, Alexander Zverev, and Andrei Rublev and Diego Schwartzman. The ATP finals will be played at the O2 Arena for the last time this year. Stefanos Tsitsipas is the defending champion after beating Dominic Thiem in last year's final, while Novak Djokovic will be looking to win the tournament for the first time since 2015. This year's qualification is based on the ATP rankings rather than a race to London ranking due to the disrupted season. Still in tennis, moving on to our next story, Tim Henman will not captain Great Britain at the ATP Cup in 2021. The former world number 4 captained Great Britain at the inaugural event earlier this year and helped them reach the quarterfinals. With uncertainties over the 2021 event, which is scheduled to start on January 1st in Australia, Henman is not planning to take on the same role. Tennis Australia chief Craig Tilley said recently that the format of the event could change due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have more stories for you. Don't go nowhere. Alright, welcome back. It's still sports around the world on Grand Sports Extra. In cycling, British Cycling have sacked one of their top coaches due to inappropriate relationship with riders. With less than a year to go until the rescheduled Olympic Games in Tokyo, British Cycling, the governing body of one of British sports' most successful Olympic team, said Kelvin Stewart had a long-term pattern of inappropriate relationship with riders and has engaged in serious inappropriate use of electronic communication. In cycling, Jumbo-Visma cyclist Dylan Groenewegen has been banned for 9 months for causing the crash that left Fabio Jacobsen in a coma at the Tour of Poland. Dutch cyclist Groenewegen deviated from his line before he and Jacobsen collided near the finish line and on stage 1 of the race on August 5th. His ban will be backdated to the incident and will end on 7th May 2021. He spent a week in intensive care and had 2 operations to reconstruct his face and jaw with more scheduled for 2021. In a statement, Grande said the crash is the first of the Tour of Poland. The crash in the first stage of the Tour of Poland will forever be a black page in my career. The consequences were unfortunate and serious, and he has since apologized. Now, moving on to our next story. In rugby, New South Wales ensured the 2020 State of Origin series will go to a decider in Brisbane with a dominant win over Queensland in Sydney. Xavier Coates tried to put the Maroons in front, but the Blues roared back with Cody Walker, James Tedesco, and George Adokar scores to lead 18-4 at the break. Jack Winston and Daniel Topu forced their way in before George Papali added a try to give hope to the Maroons. It was short-lived as Adokar got to Walker's kick to restore the advantage. The all-important third game will take place at the Brisbane Suncorp Stadium on Wednesday, 18th November, when the Maroons will also have a partisan crowd in attendance. That's the much we can take on sports around the world today. Join us tomorrow again on the same station, Grand Sport Extra. I remain Austin Arome. See you tomorrow.
Yes, we knew they were going to press hard at the pitch until the final whistle.
Athletic Club on Saturday, a goal in the opening 10 minutes.